Why do you think
Yeah.
drummers are now implementing the use of electronic kits over acoustic kits for specific venues and gigs? I am joined on the UK Drum Show official podcast by Alan from Digital Drummer Magazine. How are you?
Hi, Ollie. Great to see you. Great to be here. Thank you for taking the time to speak to me, and hopefully we'll get through some interesting stuff as we lead into the run up to the show.
Mate, well, yes, you are going to have a huge presence at this year's UK Drum Show. We're really, really excited to have you there once again. Obviously, no strangers to the UK Drum Show. You did the UK Drum Show last year, Europe Drum Show earlier this year. You're back in the UK, then
That's
heading
right.
straight off to the Europe Drum Show in 2026 as well.
That's it. Yeah.
Those
No,
flights.
it's. I think it's a great concept. I'd been to the drum show previously and spoken to Neil about the growth of electronic percussion, which is obviously my big focus with Digital Drummer. And it was kind of there were a few electronic drummers from time to time on the main stage, but it was really kind of overlooked. So we put our heads together and came up with this concept of 8 performances over 2 days, featuring the cream of the crop of e-drummers and some of the greatest technology out there. So at both of the previous shows, we've actually had product launches, products seen for the very first time at the UK show and at the Europe show. Not too sure if that's going to happen this time in Liverpool. We're going through a kind of quiet time at the moment in terms of product launches. But the things that they'll be playing, I think, will not have been seen by a lot of people. And I'm particularly excited, for example, about David Haynes, who will be there doing finger drumming. And, most of us kind of think that finger drumming is a bit odd and not quite up to the skill set that we've achieved with sticks and pedals. But when you see what he can do with his fingers and with the technology, he'll be playing some Akai products. I think that's going to be a real eye opener for a lot of people. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to sharing the technology that I write about kind of day in and day out. A lot of people are interested in electronic drums. A lot of people are still a bit skeptical. And I think what we try to do is show firstly what they look like and sound like. We've come a long way from, the hexagonal pads and the dinky little, rubber pads. We have full-blown acoustic-looking kits, and the sounds these days are just absolutely amazing. You close your eyes and you're going to be astounded that you're actually listening to an electronic instrument. So yeah,
It
that's
yeah, I mean, absolutely. When you think about those old sort of kits from the 80s, that especially drummers like Bill Bruford
yeah,
used to sort of really be a fan of and use them a lot, during his days with Yes and on lots
yeah,
of
yeah.
various projects. We have come a long way, and what I wanted to ask you is, for those that might not know, what exactly is eDrum Labs, and what is it going? What presence is it going to have at this year's UK Drum Show?
Okay, so the labs are basically a platform to demonstrate electronic percussion. So there's a lot of stuff out there that people haven't seen. There's a lot of techniques, there's a lot of technology that most people might not be familiar with. But there is a very dedicated kind of following for electronic percussion. So we're going to give both parties something special. So we're bringing together a range of artists basically from around the world. So, we've got people coming in from the US, like David, as I said. Then we've got a lot of local talent. So obviously the amazing Andy Gangadine. Everybody knows Andy for his hybrid drumming. So he's going to be there. Some fantastic people like Simon Edgoose, who has been very much the face of Yamaha in the UK. He's worked with some of the big touring bands to put in some stealth electronics that nobody knows about and nobody sees, but really boosts their sound on stage. So we're going to have people like Lee Murray, who people will remember from the 90s group Let Loose. He's going to be talking about using electronic percussion in special education, so for children with special needs and those kind of applications. Bit Beresford is another UK artist who has written not only a book on electronic drumming, but he's done a hell of a lot of work of integrating music and lighting and video, and he triggers everything with Ableton, from the kit. And then from the US, we've got Adam Tuminaro from Alesis. Adam's very well known as Orlando drummer, and he's got something like 3 million views, or as I like to say after his last performance, 3,200,000. So, I mean, he's just a great presence. He's got lots of energy. He's, a big personality. And when he sits down at an Alesis kit, it really is something to behold. So there's a really big cross section of drummers, all genres, and various equipment. So the latest gear from Roland, from Zildjian, from Akai, from local British manufacturer Jabeki. We'll be seeing
Mm.
samples from Toontrack. So yeah, there's just going to be a heap of stuff. 45-minute sessions over the 2 days spread out. Unfortunately, if you miss it on the Saturday, you're not going to be able to see it on the Sunday, but there'll be something equally impressive. And it's just a great sort of celebration of electronic percussion, and a great demonstration of what can be achieved, how realistic they are, how responsive they are, and how fantastic they can look and sound in the right hands.
I was going to say, I mean, a lot of drummers worry about the, I suppose, feel of electric kits versus acoustic kits. When it comes to those discussions and, acoustic versus electric, what advancements are you seeing bridge the gap between acoustic kits and electric kits?
Yeah, well, I guess you flagged the Simmons kits in the 80s, and those were like hitting a table effectively. There was kind of no give whatsoever. And, there were all these stories about drummers with broken wrists after an exuberant thrash out. So we've seen the development of mesh. So mesh these days feels very much like Mylar, like real heads. And mesh is now, multi-layer. So it used to be kind of 1 ply or 2 ply. Now we get even 4 ply mesh, and
Yeah.
so it gives you kind of some resistance, but it also gives you some bounce. So that's quite close to the feel of Mylar. There are some rubber products now. Yamaha has a special kind of rubber formulation that sits on top of kind of a foamy interior, and that has a really natural feel. So the feel is very much, akin to what you would have on an acoustic kit. But importantly, the sizes of the pads are now acoustic drum sizes. So it's not uncommon now to have a 14-inch snare, a 20-inch kick, an 8-inch or 10-inch tom, a 16-inch floor tom. So the kind of muscle memory is still there, and you
Yes.
close your eyes and you virtually know that everything is where it should be. So you're hitting where you should be hitting, pretty much with the force that you should be playing with, and getting the kind of rebound and response that you're used to. The one area perhaps where there is a bit of a lag has been in cymbals. So
Mm.
rubber cymbals haven't quite kind of got the feel of metal yet. But then, Zildjian does have metal cymbals, and there are other players on the market who are manufacturing metal cymbals now. The DWE has metal cymbals.
Mm.
The downside, of course, is that they're incredibly noisy. So for those of us who are used to electronic drums and used to the tap, 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 suddenly, there's this full-blown acoustic noise of a metal cymbal being smacked, and that kind of doesn't really gel with the soft purr of the mesh, I guess. But yeah, the feel and the playing response and the natural kind of ergonomics of drumming is really very much retained in contemporary electronic kits at all price levels. You're getting
Mm.
entry level kits at the 200-300 pound mark that are already, mesh heads and all that kind of stuff. Decent sized cymbals. We don't have these kind of little pizza wedge kind of cymbals that we
Yes.
used to have in the early 2000s. So it is all becoming, very congruent with what you would expect from an acoustic kit. And that's probably because so many people are starting their drumming journey now with electronics, because they live in an apartment, or because
Mm.
they, can't make a noise at home for whatever reason. So a hell of a lot of people are actually starting their drumming career, their drumming journey with an electronic kit these days. And when you sit them down in front of an acoustic kit, they kind of go, where's the brushes setting? Where is they've forgotten that you actually need to
Yes.
change or change. your approach to get different sounds out of an acoustic kit.
There's a lot of drummers now out there who've previously played acoustic kits that seem to be moving more to the electronic market. I mean, a huge advocate for the electric kits is John Stanier from Battles, and
Yeah,
obviously more recently we've had Devon Townsend's drummer Darby Todd do an entire show with an orchestra using an
yeah,
electric kit. Why do you think
yeah.
drummers are now implementing the use of electronic kits over acoustic kits for specific venues and gigs?
Yeah. Well, I think over and above the things that we've discussed, so the ability to practice at home and that sort of thing without, really annoying the neighbors. You have so much versatility now with an electronic drum kit because the drum brain, the module has, 50, 60, 70 different sounding kits. So if
Yes.
you wanted to play a jazzy kit, you just, turn to kit 7 or whatever. If you want to play a John Bonham kit, there'll be kit 24.
Mm.
So at the flick of a switch, you can go from a really tight little jazz kit to a thunderous, you know, arena reverb kind of acoustic kit. And I think that's the thing when you're on stage now, a lot of the time, the main emphasis is on reproducing the sound that was on the record, which was achieved in the studio. And there's kind of a
Mm.
lot of processing and stuff going on in the studio that you can't do on the stage live. So if you want that kind of sound, you want those really cutting snares, you want those really reverberant toms, you're not necessarily going to be able to achieve that on a live stage. So you do that electronically. So I think, and of course, the other thing is volume control on stage. So
Mm.
we're I think sick and tired of being in a fish pond of acrylic cages. You really want the drummer to be out there and visible, but not to the extent that his sound is eradicating everything else
Compromised.
that's
Yeah.
happening on stage. This way, there's just a tap, tap, tap on stage, and whatever's coming through the feedback loops of, either the in-ears or the monitors. So yeah, sound control is a big one.
Yeah.
Versatility, and then the ability to, go to a show and know exactly what sound you're going to achieve, regardless of the acoustics of the venue. So whether it's, a little club or Wembley Arena,
Yeah.
the kit is going to sound the same because, the signal coming into the desk is the same. So a
Yes.
lot of control, yeah.
So your presence at this year's UK Drum Show, you've mentioned an arsenal of great drummers that are going to be joining you
Yeah.
over the weekend. Will people coming to your exhibition space have the opportunity to try out some of those drums with you and talk to you?
No, we're not actually going to be able to let them try the gear. Although that said, most of the people who are performing are being supported by people in the exhibition.
Yes.
So, after the set, they can go down and fight the crowds and, go to the Alesis booth. Alesis are going to be doing a heap of stuff. They're going to have a heap of kits. Roland always has a heap of kits.
Yeah.
Yamaha are going to be there with a big presence. So all the gear will probably be on show, and they will have an opportunity to sit down, see what it does, speak to the product experts from the manufacturers or the importers, get some insight into what it does, what it costs, what's involved in using it. What they will have, though, is an opportunity to ask questions, and
Yeah.
so I've been pretty emphatic with all of the artists that we need to leave a good 10 minutes at the end of the set to
Yeah.
take questions from the floor, because these people are living, breathing, playing electronics every day of
Mm.
their life. A great opportunity to find out the kind of challenges that they face and the opportunities that electronics present, and just how they use it and how they've achieved the sounds that they would be demonstrating through the set. So, yeah, there's not going to be much hands-on, but there will be a lot of opportunity to certainly find out how it works and ask any questions. And, these people are all performers with some reputation anyway, so people are just
Yes.
probably fans of them. People are big fans of Andy and of Luke
Yeah.
and of Simon. So it's a good opportunity to, find out what makes them tick and find out what secrets they bring. And the wonderful thing about e-drummers is it's an incredibly sharing community. Drumming in itself is a very kind of open and sharing community compared to other musical instruments. But e-drummers seem to be kind of particularly prone to sharing. People are always coming up with tweaks and ideas and, turning innocent kitchen and garden implements into triggers of some sort or another. So there's a lot of sharing and there's a lot of discussion. And I think people are going to come away with a really good understanding and an opportunity to ask anything that they've been curious about. If not of the people on stage, then the people sitting next to them in the performance.
Do you think there's kind of two different types of drummers? You've mentioned sort of drummers in one sentence and then e-drummers in another sentence. Or do you think that it takes a certain personality type to maybe move more towards the e-drums, or do you think that just drummers in general are now kind of celebrating both electronic and acoustic drums, both equally?
Yeah, good question. Look, I think we're going through exactly what the piano went through with the keyboard and what the acoustic guitar has gone through with the electric guitar. I mean, effectively, it's the same skill set, it's the same, mechanics, it's the same ergonomics. But what we are seeing is different applications, different environments. And the one thing, I've interviewed, I started the magazine in 2010 and every edition has had an artist profile. And these are really big names, touring artists who everybody would know. And every single one of them is using electronics in some form or another, whether it be,
Yeah.
an SPDX or whether it be, stealth hidden triggers in their
Yes.
acoustic kits.
To keep time.
Everybody is using it and everybody kind of agrees that this is the way it has to go. Just, for reasons of predictability, certainty, ensuring that you sound on stage the same as you wanted to sound in sound check and all of, control all the variables that you can inside the box, as it were, and then it's just really a matter of playing on stage. So no, I don't think there are two specific kinds of drummers. I think increasingly drummers are becoming electronic drummers, either
Mm.
because of the need, because they can't make a noise at home or whatever,
Yeah.
because of the economics. Electronic kits are getting cheaper and cheaper.
Yeah.
And good acoustic kits, I think, are getting more and more expensive because we're seeing this kind of plethora of bespoke, custom crafted acoustic drums. And the bottom end of the market is kind of not that profitable and interesting to the manufacturers anymore. But in the e-drum space, there's as much emphasis on, the 12,000 pound kits as there is on producing 300-pound kits.
Mm.
The manufacturers realize that there's a broad spectrum of drummers and they have to kind of create and pitch products at every market segment.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
we saw in the last couple of years DW go into electronics with DWE, which is a really top of the line kit in terms of price, performance, and
Yes.
everything else. And the people who are going to a shop to buy a set of DWEs could very well buy a set of acoustic DWs and maybe already own one.
Mm.
But, they're interested in the quality, they're interested in the reputation, and they're interested in the electronics, which are just fantastic.
I mean, I can't wait to see the UK Drum Show this year. It's going to be absolutely amazing. You've got a plethora of different types of electronic drums to show us, and we're so excited to have you for a second year at the UK Drum Show. Um, Before I let you go, what do you see the future as regarding electronic drums? And I say this because you mentioned, the old pizza slice cymbals or, the 12-inch or 10-inch pads that you had,
Yeah.
on sort of very thin rubber pads. Now we're seeing electric drums that look like acoustic drums. We're seeing lovely, beautiful acrylic shells or even
Yeah.
oak or whatever. Where does it go next? Where should electronic drum companies put their focus into, and how's it going to grow?
Yeah. Look, I think firstly, it is going to grow. There's no doubt about that. You go into any music store anywhere, and the kind of floor space is getting smaller and smaller for acoustics and bigger for electronics. So there's clearly a market interest. There is hunger, there is an appetite, and there's a real need. We've gone through the need to practice silently. And for kids today starting out, it's just their experience compared to what we went through. They grab their phone, they get a drumless track, they feed it through to their drum kit via Bluetooth. So they've got the full band with them, whatever they're into, and they're just
Mm.
playing along. And they can match the sounds of the kit to the genre they're playing. I don't know about you, but playing with a record player and Sergeant
Yeah.
Pepper's
Yeah.
um, in the music room at home and everybody screaming at me, that it's just such a different experience. It's immersive. You're playing instruments that sound like the real thing. You're playing it in a mix with bands that you love, with songs that you know. So that whole learning experience is just fantastic. And there are all of the onboard training tools. So you can sit there and play with metronome, and there's a guide
Yeah.
that's telling you you're fast, you're slow, you're fast, you're slow, whatever. Those are just invaluable. You couldn't do that. You needed a drum teacher for that in the old days. But here, the cheapest kit on the market virtually has got a teacher in it and they're patient as well. It doesn't matter how much you screw up, they just keep coming back for more. So, I think electronics are definitely here to stay. What we're seeing is the market is really spreading, so getting cheaper and cheaper at one end, and then getting more and more niche and advanced on the other. So I've mentioned DWE, which completely wireless. So there's no
Mm,
cables. It's
mm,
all wireless. There's pretty much zero latency. So you hit the snare, you hear it straight away. There's no messing around like a wireless microphone or whatever. It's absolutely
mm,
instantaneous. You've got real sizes. You've got kits that look beautiful. It's not just
mm.
functionality. It's they're making
Aesthetic.
object of art almost.
Mm,
And let's be honest, there are a lot of people who during COVID had a lot of time on their hands and thought it
mm,
was time to rekindle their hobbies. And now they're middle-aged and they're successful and they have disposable income and their wife won't
mm.
let them get a Harley Davidson. So it's not a problem for them to spend 12 grand on a drum kit.
Yeah.
So I think the market is really expanding at both ends. We're getting more and more kind of custom niche, exotic instruments at the top end of the market. We're getting much more affordable stuff at the bottom end. And then there's a heap of choice in the middle.
Mm,
Whatever you're into, whatever aesthetic you're into, whatever kind of sound set you're into, there's something for everyone. And I'm not sure that we can say that about acoustics, because acoustics are difficult to maintain. You have to tune them, which is no mean feat to get a kit sounding good. You can't just take it out of the box and it sounds great. Whereas an electronic kit, bang, out of the box, once you've configured it to the way you play and the triggering response, bang on, it's perfect. It sounds
mm,
perfect every time you hit it. You don't have to worry about head stretching or any of that stuff. So maintenance is pretty much zero. And the market is just getting more and more sophisticated. I think getting more affordable at one end and then giving you
mm,
much more options on the other end. And then, there are innovations that we can't even contemplate. 5 years ago, the concept of wireless drums would have been
mm.
science fiction. Now
Yeah.
there it is. So, I think we're seeing incredible realism, sampling, the ability to load real samples, multi-layer samples into a drum module. The VSTs, the software solutions, are just getting more and more advanced.
Mm,
The latest tune track samples have different samples for left and right hit on the snare. So
oh,
and things like the Roland snare, digital snare, can actually determine exactly where on the head you're hitting, and it matches the sample to where you're hitting. Now that
mm,
this is kind of science fiction to
yeah.
many people, but there it is. So all of the nuance that you get from playing around the head, close to the edge, right in the middle, harder, softer, whatever, you're getting all of that nuance in an
Mm,
electronic instrument where, with a Simmons pad, you just got bang, bang, and that was it. No matter how hard you hit, you sometimes got bang, ouch from your wrist, but that was it. So yeah, I think we're becoming more sophisticated. There's no doubt that electronics are here to stay. And just imagine the beauty of going down to the exhibition hall at the UK drum show where there's 4,000 decibels of people smacking the crap out of snare drums currently. Just imagine if that was electronic and it was just tap, tap, tap. And yet in their heads, they had these enormous arena reverb kind of sounds. So, and we did that actually in Germany at the Europe show. We
mm,
were right in the middle of the complex, completely exposed, but the audience were wearing headphones
mm,
and the artists were playing wirelessly through the headphones. So, when you were sitting there totally immersive, you could hear left and right, you could hear, all of the dynamics, you could hear the reverb, you could hear everything. And the people walking past could hear tap, 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 tap. So, I think that'd be the ideal for me to be able to walk around the exhibition and actually talk to people rather
Yeah.
than, holding my
Yes.
ears and going, oh, when is this going to end? But
Well,
there are people who enjoy the adrenaline of that, and it is a buzz. There's no doubt about that. And certainly, I won't insist that people spend all of the time at the eDrum labs. Feel free to wander around the exhibition, and obviously the main stage and all the other experience rooms. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Liverpool. I just wish I had more time to get out and see some other things. But yeah, it's a great weekend, and I'm really happy to be involved again. And hopefully, we'll do it again for many years to come, as long as there are electronic drums.
oh, we're really excited to have you, and it's clear your enthusiasm for e-drums is stratospheric. So it's great to it's great to hear that passion, and obviously when it comes to electronic kits versus acoustic kits, there's always people are always going to
Yeah,
feel like they
yeah,
have to be on one side of the fence, but actually I
yeah,
don't think you do anymore. You can
no,
integrate acoustic drums into your electric kit or vice versa, and
absolutely.
it all
Yeah,
seems to be kind of becoming one, which is a really
yeah,
great
yeah,
place for the whole drumming
yeah,
community.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Alan, thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. We finally managed to make it work despite the enormous time difference. Your dedication to the UK Drum Show and Europe Drum Show is huge. I know you've got a lot of flights to catch, so we will let you
Uh,
prep.
it, no, it's absolutely worth it. I just love doing this. I love, I've got readers all over the world, but UK and Europe is pretty strong. And people come up to me and they, talk about the magazine and things that we've run, and so it's really nice to have that kind of personal interaction, because when you're a publisher and you just kind of send stuff off into the ether, you don't always get the feedback.
Yeah,
So, wonderful for me to see my audience and to meet the artists who many of whom I've interviewed but never met in the flesh.
yeah.
So great opportunity. And of course, you guys run such a slick operation that it's just a pleasure
Stop
to be
it.
part of it.
You
So
hang up. No, you hang
yeah,
up. Stop
yeah, the check's in the mail. Yep, yep.
it. Yeah. Alan, finally, where can people find out more about you and Digital Drummer?
Digitaldrummermag.com. So it's a free newsletter. We used to be a quarterly magazine. We're now a monthly newsletter. We're constantly publishing blogs. So there's new material all the time. And yeah, we get out there and we do the shows. And, I've done NAMM several times. And yeah, it's just important, I guess, to get out there and see the stuff, speak to the manufacturers, speak to the artists. But yeah, digitaldrummermag.com, and see you all in Liverpool.
See you in Liverpool.